Oh, wow. And Bennett Wake Night, everybody. Holy cow. Bennett, I'm so glad that you signed in. Bennett is not only just an incredible human being, he was also, I forgot his title, shoot, but he worked at WGN. He was a producer. He's a wonderful human being, a friend, and now a savior of Coffee with a Coach. So thank you, Bennett.
Yes.
Good man. All right. So we got double view here. This is great.
I feel
And now we can get to our initial questions. Coach of the century. Someone just congrats. That's an exciting accolade. So here's what we got to do first. Let's give a shout out to our local coffee spots. Do you want to? You have a story attached to yours, right? So
yeah. So I have a story.
Let me start with mine then, because it's quick, and then I want to hear this story. So I've actually got two here because I went on a walk this morning and I got Gallery Cafe. Good people. Eugene, you're the man if you're watching this. And then I've also got, because you are on, I brewed my own Innkeepers. Do you remember Innkeepers down by Knox College?
Knox College.
It was the last of the beans that I got from when I was down there. So I brewed my own. I had to.
There we go.
Delicious. And what have you got?
Okay, so I have Starbucks. Okay, and I know that that's a very big chain, but my players, if they watch this, they know that I drink like nitro cold brew before big games, and then I'll get really hyped up to the point where I actually scare them because I'm so excited and hyped up. So that makes me always have nitro cold brew before games. So
well, that is, I'm so glad you said that, because what an essential part of coaching that is, fear. To instill fear in the people with whom you work. I'm just kidding.
No, but it's funny. They know. They'll be like, oh, Coach Marver already had her nitro cold brew for the day, because we'll be at a tournament or something and it'll be 9 a.m. and I'm like so hyped up. But that's also my personality, and this just kind of excites.
I was going to say, this seems like it's just an exaggerator, perhaps.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because that's kind of you anyway. So we mentioned Innkeepers. When it comes to the story of you, why don't we start sort of there? You played basketball at Knox College, correct?
Mm-hmm,
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Glenbrook North.
What a place.
What a place.
They call it the Nutrier of Glenbrook. I'm just kidding.
I will always, us and Nutrier, those two things that don't mix.
That's okay. That's all right. It's funny because I, from my experience, there are really good people at both places, and they would get along if they just got to know each other. That's what I think. Yes,
I agree with that now that I'm older and wiser.
But high school rivalries are hard to do away with. That also is understandable. That's one of the fun parts of sports, I suppose, if it's done well. So you played at Glenbrook North, and you played at this wonderful spot, Knox College. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
So I graduated Knox College 2015, played basketball there 4 years, and it was like the best experience ever. And, even my girls on my Willows team know that, like, I talk about it literally all the time. And my assistant coach, Kristen Melville, shout out to her, also played with me at Knox College. And it was really cool experience. I feel like the reason why I ended up there was cool because senior year I tore my ACL, and kind of my path to where I was going to play in college completely turned around. And had I not torn my ACL senior year, I probably would not have ended up at Knox. So it's really cool that, everything happens for a reason, but I ended up loving it there. I think that I had like the best teammates. It was really cool because the program was pretty low when I first went there, and my class really turned it around. And that was something that was super important to me, was to be part of a program that turned around as a player.
Sure.
And those were like my teammates are like my best friends for life. I coached with one of them. I don't think I would have any friends if I didn't play sports, because that's the only way that I, did that. But by my senior year, we were breaking records. We were, making bids to the Midwest Conference tournament. I was able to score 1,000 points my senior year. So that was a lot of fun. And it was just like a really awesome experience. Like, I think that I have only good things to say about the program. And now it's fun as an alumni to see like what we did now. Really, they're getting better every year. I see the Knox College women's basketball program, and they're getting even better every year. And it was cool that I could have been a part of that. And I just feel like going to a Division III school, a small school, and being able to, you know, feel like really a part of that community was something that I think helped shape me into the coach I am now.
Yeah, I believe that completely. I think, first of all, I agree. I think it's a special place. I was happy to go to Knox College, and I played football there, not basketball, but I sort of kept an eye on your career from afar. You know, I always sort of watch and see what's going on. I think a lot of, you know, when people you talk about like the legacy of your place, and that like the alumni of Knox are watching. Sometimes that's not true, but in my case, it definitely is. I like not, you know, Knox Athletics has a tab on my internet browser all the time. So yeah, I watched you guys do that, and then and you're right, and it's when it's done well, when a program is done well, a class like that will have sort of a ripple effect, and that seems to be what's going on. So yeah, like they've what happened this year? Did they get cut off before the end of the season, or did they qualify for the tournament?
I believe they lost the game to.
That
I think they qualified for the tournament and then lost.
Okay.
I believe that first game. But
Okay.
it was also cool because there was a girl on the Knox team this year who broke my record for like points, and that made me really excited. Like I just love seeing like this keeping going, and it just like makes me so happy to see my college program go in the right direction. And that was something that really I think shaped me as a coach, because Willows is very similar, I feel like, to what Knox is, like a small community, like really great kids, like great people. And that's what builds a culture, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's interesting. I think back on my career too, and I hear you with your injury. I didn't have I thought perhaps, you know, I actually kind of lean away from the Division III naming system. I want to lean into that point for a second, actually.
Okay.
The division system is always tricky for me because, like, you know, we went to, I think, pretty high achieving high schools, and kids have high goals, and the athletics are pretty sound, even, you know, in some cases really, really good. And I think sometimes we're sort of indoctrinated to think that, like, you know, I'm going D1, or I'm going to, you know, when you think of a college athletic experience, you think for a football player playing in the big house at Michigan or Notre Dame or something like that. That's what college is. And I think people too often neglect the idea that a college athletic experience, in my opinion, is defined by initially one's desire to continue playing their sport. And it's funny how often people forget that. I'm serious, and I hope you're okay. We're going to come back into more of your story and
oh yeah, no,
Willows, but
I love this.
I just think it's such an important idea, because the question should not be, you know, and I work with high school athletes all the time. It shouldn't be like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Are you a D1 person or whatever? It's like, look, do you like your sport enough to play for 4 more years? And alongside that, are you willing to commit, go to practice, lift weights, you know, take care of your body? Are you, like, that should be question one. I think we get sort of romanced by this idea of what being a college athlete looks like. And that just isn't true for anything more than like 1% of the athletic population or whatever it might be. And then I say that to get into this idea that, you know, the tiered system, D1, D2, D3, 1AA, JUCO, whatever it might be, it just comes with too much stigma, I think.
Oh yeah.
It's, are you a college athlete or not? Start there, and then find the place that's right for you.
Oh yeah, I agree. And I think that when I was in high school, it was interesting because I think that especially in the area, like growing up, like in the North Shore, there was like a lot of stigma around like where you go. And I remember when I was making my college decision, even like at the level that we were, there was a stigma like you should be going to like, you know, a bigger one like WashU or DePaul. Like there was like something around the name of it. And I think that sometimes just not even like, it's like the name of the school, the division. It's like, it does make kids want to just, you know, and especially with social media right now, kids just want to say where they're going to say where they're going instead of it being like this encompassing experience. But I couldn't agree more about the tiers and all that, because, you know, now I still play basketball for fun and play in leagues, and I'm playing with players that play professional, that play Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, and we all are the same. It's, you know, I think when it comes to playing college sports, it's just about the experience that you want. And that's what I tell to my girls all the time. Like, there are so many of my players or even students at Willows who are now thinking about playing college sports now that they really have opened their eyes to what that experience can be. And when I was in that position, you know, yes, like I had an injury that changed it. But at the same time, it was, what kind of experience do I want? I knew I wanted to go to a smaller school, whether it was athletic or not. So Knox was perfect for that.
Yeah.
I wanted to become a teacher. I wanted to go somewhere where I had more balance. I knew at the Division 3 level, I could go home for summers and stuff. So it's just like figuring out what you want as a person, and then knowing that you want to tie sports into it is, you know, what makes it the experience that it is. And had I just gone to a school to say, oh, I went Division 1, I played at so-and-so, I don't think I'd be sitting here talking so highly about my career. And it made me a better person. Like, I truly believe that, like, going to Knox made me like the better person that I am today and steered me into the career that I am in now.
I love to hear that, because I agree wholeheartedly. And I think the same is true in my case. And you think about it, you mentioned, I'm going to use that Twitter example that you said as a model. I think once you get the, you know, proud to, or blessed to receive an offer from X school. Okay, fine. I get it. And I do get it. Honestly, it's like every human being wants to be validated. A young human being who has committed their life to their sport, that is a sort of validation that matters to them. So I get it. And I don't judge that part. But I do hope that young people realize that, like, if you get an offer from, I don't know, if you just straight up want to go D1, so you're at Bowling Green, say, and you're a D1 athlete, and you get to tell all your friends that you're a D1 athlete, and you get to post it. I'm not sure people recognize how fleeting that is. We've had, I've worked with some young people who've walked on at Division 1 colleges, and they are D1. And I'll say, and maybe this is just my situation. Maybe I haven't done a good enough job instilling a certain sort of mindset, but I have a handful of people that I've coached that have walked on at D1. Some of them have gone to a Division 1 school, and like but you're sort of born a monster in the football world, and that's just how it is. But we've had a handful of people who've walked on to the Division 1 level, and not one of them has made it all the way through. And that is not a knock on any of them. It is just, you know, like, once you get the 100+ likes, you're in the triple digits on Twitter for your commitment. Then the work begins. And I'm not sure that people recognize that. Like, if you're a walk-on, say, at a Division 1 school, you better be in it in a way that is legitimately obsessive. And that's something that probably goes not talked about often enough in sports in general, but especially in college sports. If you're not obsessive, and I would even say, and this is coming from someone with a psychology background, but who also really loves sports, if you don't sort of cross over the line from healthy athletic experience to obsessive, then your odds of succeeding at that level become very low. And that's something that people need to really wrestle with. Like you said, if you want to be able to go home and see your friends and have some sort of school to life balance, to be able to, kind of I don't want to say enjoy, because everyone enjoys their own thing, but if you want to have a more diversified collegiate experience, then that's something that you should recognize going in.
Right. And I agree with that completely, because, I think when I was a senior at Glenbrook North, I was like wanting that Division 1, like that was the thing.
Sure.
But it's so interesting how it all turned out, because I feel like that definitely happened for a reason, because I think I would have burnt out at some point if I would have been doing basketball all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can ask my players now. I'm completely obsessed with basketball. Like, all I do is like watch game film and do stuff for basketball. But like,
Right.
I also have a healthy balance now. And that's how it was when I was at Knox. Like, when I turned it on, I turned it on and I was obsessed with it. But then I could also turn it off, And I feel like that's really what helped me realize that I was in the right place. Because I don't know, had I just had to keep it on all the time, I might have burnt out at a higher level.
100%. That and what you just said, I hope people are listening to this, because that's the skill. The skill is learning when to like turn up and down the volume. And you're taking us to a really important place. We just had a guy on the podcast not too long ago, Chris Duffin, who is a world record holder in like a number of areas. He most recently squatted 1,000 pounds for a set for 3 reps. It was like his, I don't know what world record it was, but Guinness Book is acknowledging it, I believe. He's a monster. But most of our conversation hinged on essentially the mindset going into the preparation, the mindset when you have to put 1,000 pounds on your back, and then how quickly he's able to sort of turn that off and go give his kids a hug and like just be a human again. And I'm with you. I think I can't help. I'm talking too much, but I can't help when we talk about Knox College and the Knox experience get into that, because like I was the same way. And I'm like getting like nostalgic and choked up right now and a little bit excited because I remember, I mean, I was obsessive. I hope that I had enough balance, but I remember after Knox, I tried to go play football, professional, but it was not in the NFL. There were other arena type opportunities. But I remember running on the track outside of the field house. And I remember just like with my hand, I'm telling you, it's like a movie. I'm like my hands on my hips, watching people just sort of like going around, like walking to and from different buildings. And it's nighttime, it's dark out. And I remember for whatever reason, all of a sudden I'm a senior and I'm like, it clicked. I'm like, well, there's something a little bit different about this. And I'm not applauding that necessarily, but I will say that if you're not willing to skip the dodgeball game to go hit the track, because, whatever, then it's harder to get to those places, and you have to be mildly obsessive. And I think Knox, a place like Knox College, or like the other ones you mentioned, my sister played at DePaul, and I've got an athlete at WashU right now. Any of these small liberal arts colleges, if you're doing it right, and if you're with coaches who are creating the correct culture, then you really do work like, okay, it's time, turn the volume up to 10. Okay, now you're a student, turn the intensity down a little bit back here. That toggle is a really important skill.
No, I completely agree. And I think that experience helped me, like, especially at Willows. Like I said, there's a lot of similarities between Knox and Willows where I work now. And I just feel like that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. And the girls are amazing. I'm going to say that every single time. I love the girls in the basketball team. So shout out to them. I believe you.
Okay, so that's a perfect segue. Tell us more about Willows.
Okay, so this is my second year coaching at Willows, and actually my first year teaching there. So like that's a really cool experience now that I also teach and coach there. Yeah. I feel like it's been interesting seeing the difference, because last year I was still teaching elementary, so I was out of the building but coaching there. And then this year I've been able to be in the building, really get to know the girls, and also coach there. And it's been a really cool experience. I feel like it very much has mirrored what I went through as a player, because, when I took this job at Willows, the program was not going in the best direction. They had like 8 girls, on the roster. Their record wasn't as great as I feel like they could have been. Yeah. And then in 1 year, I just feel like we did a lot. We completely flipped the wins and loss record. Like they won 8 games the year before, and then the next year we only lost 8 games. So like that was pretty cool.
8 games out of how many? What was that record?
Our record was 21-8, and the year before they were 8-17. So that was like really cool to see that much growth in a short amount of time. Yeah. But like I want to very much say like it was I feel like the girls like did it. Like I was just helping them tap into their potential. Like it was very much them that like turned around that year, and even this year. I feel like we did a lot this year. But I feel like what I was most proud about, like over the last 2 years, wasn't necessarily the record that we had, but it was more about like the interest level in girls wanting to play. They had 8 the year before I came. Then we grew to 13. And then this past year we had 25 girls, and we had a full JV and full varsity roster, which wasn't even a thing there. And I think that's what makes me more proud, like looking at these past 2 years, is like these girls just like getting excited and wanting to play and like having an amazing high school experience. But it is very exciting to look back and see like record wise what we have accomplished. Yeah. But the number one thing that I always say to them, and they'll know this, is like, we focus on our culture, results come. We don't focus on winning. We go into games and we want to win it, but it's like, you know, are we getting better as a team? Are we playing together? Are we being positive? Are we cheering for each other? Oh, the cheering's the big thing. If you ever watch some of our game film,
Yeah.
our bench is probably the best bench I've ever seen in my entire life. I watch them and I'm not really paying attention during the games, you know, because I'm so focused, but I'll watch the film and I'll be like, wow, we're so fun. Like, I love watching them. But like, it becomes a culture of them getting excited about each other and the team and less about themselves. And I think when that happens and they come together, it's like very cool. And these kids just are like super good people, and they like want to achieve and they want to get better. And I think that I can take that any day over, you know, kids that just have a lot of skill and might not have the attitude there, you know, like they have it. And I think that that's so much fun to work with. And I think that's what makes Willows a really special place, is just like how awesome these girls are, like as people, and how I can tap into that as a coach.
I mean, I feel like, okay, this is Coffee with the Coach is supposed to be a casual segment where two people just hang out and discuss, but you've sort of said everything right. And so I hope you recognize that, because it is the truth. And I think good coaches will have the humility to recognize that the athletes are the ones scoring baskets, making plays, etc. That much is clear. But I think it's also true that that your job in many ways is to create a culture that maximizes whatever potential they have, because the same person could have just as easily not scored the basket or not made the appropriate read and passed to their teammate in the corner who happened to be open at the time or whatever. You know, they could walk back to a bench that's like pouty and silent and upset that they're not the ones in the game, instead of cheering and excited for each other. I think you're spot on. I don't know. The culture. Yeah, I'm gonna do my best to pick my words carefully here and not refer to anyone or anything too specifically, just ideas, because I don't want to, you know, I love everyone I've ever coached or worked with, but it is really, like you say, it's easy to be sort of romanced by talent, and the truth is that once you pass a certain talent threshold, like of course you need some talent. If you can't shoot a basketball, if no one on your team can shoot a basketball, then you're not going to win a lot of basketball games. That's fair. But once you pass like a minimum threshold of talent, then all these other things start to become even more important. And I think that's what I think too often coaches don't recognize. I think the good ones, like, and I'm going to put you in this category, recognize that as long as you cross a baseline of talent, then in any given year, you're going to be competitive. And then when you set the culture up appropriately, then in the years where you have a little bit extra talent, then you may go on to do something really special. But it all absolutely, unequivocally, no questions asked, I don't care how tough anyone listening to this is, it will always fall back to culture. If you have a poisonous me first culture led by the most talented people on the team who only care about their Twitter and Instagram likes, then you'll get what you get. And it's probably not going to be a lot. And I think this is really important too. You've mentioned now you get to coach with a friend also. So this is meaningful, but you seem to enjoy what you're doing. An unhealthy team culture, that wouldn't be true. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, it's very fair. I think that over the years, you know, as a player and as a coach, I've been able to work and play for all different types of coaches. And I know from those experiences, like the type of coach that I want to be, you know. And I think coming into being a head coach at Willows, I was like super nervous because I had no experience being a varsity head coach. And I didn't really know the X's and O's, you know. You don't really learn it until you're in it and have to do it. But I knew what I wanted out of the culture and what like I wanted to see the girls do. And at the end of the day, like them having the best high school experience is like number one top of my list. And then everything else under that, you know, I knew that I could help figure out as I go. And so I agree. I think the culture definitely has come first, but like these girls really are the ones that did it. Like a coach can do one thing. Like here's the way I see it. It's top down. A coach can say something like I could say, okay, let's have good culture. Let's do this. then it's the captains. And once the captains do it, then everything falls under, you know. It's such a buy-in experience. And I think that like my first year, I had these two captains, Claire and Kaylee, who were like the best at that. Like everything I said they were doing, and that's why it worked so well. And then the captains this year followed under that. And I know next year it will happen that way too, because it's only a team culture when everyone buys in, and that starts from the top and goes down.
Right. I could not agree more. And it's funny how much, you know, so much of the work at the Good Athlete Project now has moved into consulting. And it's a nonprofit education foundation that focuses on a lot of individualized consulting. And the reason is kind of like you're mentioning, these amazing parallels between athletic culture and business culture. And if we're really being thoughtful about it, like our own personal lives, these are transferable qualities. Like you just said, if you come in with a plan, you execute your plan, part of that plan is culture, then you identify who within the room needs to be like the initial adopters of that culture. Once you can convince them, once you can get them bought in, then you begin these ripple effects. It's essentially scaling your model in these sort of nuanced and important ways. But it's really meaningful. And I think you did it fast. So let me say this too, because we're also toying on I think it's an interesting balance here. Because you are a nitro personality even without nitro. You've sort of combined that. I think you're going to have some tough years for sure. Not every year is going to be a 21-8 turnaround. But I think, you know, we often talk about coaches being conscious of the fact that they are the energy catalyst in the room. And that's something that we really work with people on, because like if you walk into a room and you are pissed off because you had a long day at work, and we talked about this when I was out there, but like if you are sleep deprived and malnourished and you haven't been working out and you had a long day, you are just emotionally off. Your ability to work with people might be off. And if you walk into the gym and you're just in sort of a crummy mood, the kids will feel that 100%. And it's amazing how often we sort of in observation find coaches being sort of crabby and complaining about how crabby their kids are today. Like, practice is just off. You know, all these kids are in such a bad mood, when it's really in part, it's the energy that the coach is exuding that's stirring the culture in that way.
Right. And I agree with that completely. Like, I want to touch on the point that you said, you know, that every year won't be a 21-8 year. Yeah. And I even feel like, you know, this past year we were like 14-17. It wasn't a 21-8 year, but this year was also a year I was extremely proud of, probably even more so than my first year, honestly. Yeah. And here's why, because my first year coaching, we turned it around so quickly. We had a great year. There was like barely any, you know, obstacles I guess we had to overcome as a team. Although I was extremely proud of that and happy at the end of the year, you know, this year it was a totally different team. I mean, we had a lot of new girls. Like I said, our program grew, and we had a lot more obstacles to overcome, and we did overcome it. And I think as a coach, I could feel myself, you know, at the beginning of the year when we were getting slammed every game by like 20 points, I was like, this is not fun, you know, like this is not fun right now. So how are we going to turn around? And at the end of the day, you know, I felt as a coach, looking back on my experiences, that I hated when my coaches would be like, all right, it's on you guys. Like, you know, we're losing. You need to change it. You need to do this. Because if it's a team effort, like, then what am I doing just telling the team to change? So we came together as a team, and we're like, you know, I was explaining to them like, okay, we got to work on our culture, but so do I, clearly, because at the end of the day, it comes down on me. So not only did we have to change our culture as a team, but I changed, you know, in making the X's and O's. You know, I adjusted our offense and defense, and, you know, try to adjust as a coach, because at the end of the day, I want to maximize what I have on the team, not just talent-wise, but making them like have the best experience possible. And if I knew that losing 20 points every game was our maximum potential, then I could go home and be like, all right, you know, this is it. Like, I'm happy with that. But I knew it wasn't. And so it was fun then at the second half of the season, teams we were losing to by 30 at the beginning of the year, we were beating. And that was really cool to see. And that's what makes me really proud of this past year.
Wait. Tell us more about that, because you touch on two really important points in just that last quick sentence. One is that if that was your potential, then you sort of swallow it and you're like, okay, we're doing our best and this is what we've got. But what didn't feel right to you was that it wasn't your best. And it sounds like by the end of the season, that proved correct.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So I think okay, so for example, like one of my favorite games, there was a team at the beginning of the year that we played named, they were like Harvard High School, not to be confused with Harvard University, although I would love if we would have, been Harvard University.
Sure.
But we lost to them by like 30 points at the beginning of the year. It was a huge blowout, and it was frustrating. And then we played them again, I want to say only a month and a half later. It was about a month later, and we beat them by 4 points. And so that's a 34-point swing. And that's not, and I think that shows like how much you can like crack into potential when like it comes together. And once again, I want to make it very clear that like everyone had to adjust. It wasn't like just
Sure.
the girls. Like it was also me. And I think that is what shows like how we came together and overcame that. And I think once the girls saw that, it made them excited, and then the ball just kept rolling. Then when we started playing other teams that we lost to by a lot, then we were beating them. We were making it closer games. We were being competitive. But I think that I knew that we could do better than this, and I think they knew it too. And it was a completely different team this year. So just figuring out, how to work with a new team, because I came into the year being like, I'm just going to do the same thing as last year. It worked. We had a great record. Let's do it again and see what happens. And it didn't work. And so we adjusted. And I think it was this really cool life lesson, though, for the girls to see like how you can overcome obstacles. And they actually saw the results in such a short span. I mean, it was literally a month that we were then and we, were beating these teams that we'd lost to. We also just like felt better as a team. We finished second place in conference just like we did last year. So it's showing them that we can see these results. So it was really cool. I actually had like so much fun. Even talking about it, you can tell like I'm getting so excited about it. Yeah. So, but no, it was a lot of fun. And it was definitely the girls. I will tell you, they're probably watching, but they did all that.
Yeah, they know that, and you were so careful to continue to come back on that, and that is, I believe you completely. I was only on campus for a very short time, but it did seem like there was just good people around, and like what a cool, the pieces of the puzzle definitely matter. It takes a coaching architecture and a coaching eye to put the puzzle together, but to have good, high quality human beings and pieces that matters. So did you get to hire your assistant coach, or how did that work?
So, okay, my first year coming in, I had two assistant coaches who I had to bring in really quickly because I was hired in the summer and then just had to figure it all out from there. Yeah. And then both of those coaches moved on doing different things. My assistant coach from last year now coaches at college, so I helped him move up in that aspect, which is really cool.
Cool.
And then this year, coming into it, me personally, I'm a coach that really believes in like building relationships, like how I am. So I really knew that like coaching with someone I'm friends with would be perfect because we already know each other. We already trust each other. That relationship building piece is there. And so it was awesome that it worked out that I could coach with Kristen, because playing with her at Knox, I mean, she's a phenomenal player, but also she's very much like me, like where we have the same beliefs. She's a great person. The girls loved her. And it was a cool experience for her too, because she had never coached before. And so I thought it would be a lot of fun to come together. And I think that was also a really good piece for the girls. I think that they wanted to have, another young coach also in there. And she was able to coach JV and have her own experiences and also help me on varsity. Cool. And it makes it a lot of fun, definitely, to coach with someone So it was a lot.
Yeah. Well, let me, I don't want you to take too much credit from yourself, because I would also say that can be a real challenge too. If you have people who are close to you, if you try to essentially do business with them, that can certainly be challenging.
Oh yeah.
And it feels like, I don't know how, maybe I'll just ask you, how have you navigated the challenges of the season working with someone who you already knew pretty well?
I think it was actually pretty interesting because both Christian and I, when we were at Knox, I think both when she was a senior and I was a sophomore, that's when it started to turn around. But when I was a freshman, we were really struggling with the program. And as players, we had to figure out how to come together
Yeah.
and build a culture. And so I feel like that really mirrored like what we went through. And I think that that's where we really came together and trying to figure out how to do this. But I agree with you. It is hard, coaching with someone that you're friends with. But at the same time, I think that if you can figure out how to build a culture with the people you're working with and get really excited about it and show up every day and be excited, and the girls seeing you being excited, I mean, that makes all the difference in the world, I think, for them. So as far as navigating that, I think it was really good for us to pull from experiences that we had as players together. And I think that just like you talked about with turning it on and off, like I think that that was super important this year, making sure that when we were together and we were coaching, we were on. But then at the end of the day, I was like, go home and let's not talk for 24 hours and then I'll see you again. I think that's super important because I think just as a player, I knew I could get burnt out. Like also as a coach, you can get burnt out,
Totally.
I hear about some coaches that will, and sometimes I do this, but that will, have a game and then want to talk with their coaches for like 2 hours after their assistants and pick through everything. It's like, sometimes you need to have like a healthy break away from it and have that balance and then come back to it. So, and I think Kristen and I did a great job with that. And I think that she really had to learn a lot in that year of like the time commitment and what it takes, just like I learned my first year of coaching. Because as a player, you have no idea, you just think the coaches show up and yell stuff at you and then that's the end of it. But there's hours and hours of like film and practice plans and talking together. And then not only watching your film, but watching film on offenses and defenses to figure out what works and making playbooks and, reaching out to every player individually. There's so many different aspects that come in that that's why I wanted to make sure we had that healthy balance this past year.
It's an interesting idea, and because it's one that more coaches need to understand that not only on the way in, but once you get there. We often think about it as like sort of a coaching fitness, meaning there is. I don't want this to turn anyone away from the field of coaching, but there is so much to do. There's so much to do, but it gets easier. It is the most difficult at the beginning. And then it becomes it kind of goes through waves, but this is how I would see it. Like essentially you begin to learn not only how to coach, the relationships with kids and the sport itself, that usually comes I wouldn't say easy, but fairly naturally to coaches. That's why they chose that profession in most cases.
Right.
But then you get into sort of the difficulty, the hours of film breakdown and like, okay, you're doing film breakdown and you've got a shoddy internet connection and there's all these things. Then you've got to reach out to 8 other people and you just got 2 emails saying so-and-so is going to Wisconsin Dells and they're going to miss the banquet or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the things just, they pile up and there's never not something to do. And I say that not to give anyone anxiety or fear of coaching, but like, you have to. I mean, it is exactly like life. You have to identify what tools you have at your disposal. Like for a lot of people, high energy might be a tool that you not only have, but you figure out how to use. Like in some conversations and some practices, you might have to turn nitro Marver up to 10, whatever you have to adjust, but that would be a tool. Your patience, your positivity, your willingness to jump into difficult conversations, whatever it might be. These are all essentially tools at one's disposal. I say all this because it gets easier over time. So the same, and that's like everyone needs to see that. So the first season film breakdown took, I don't know how many minutes. The next season, it might not take the same amount of minutes, or it probably shouldn't to do the same thing. Or if you do spend the same amount of minutes on it, you would have gotten much more out of that time because your efficiency has gone up. So it's sort of a double-edged message to coaches. One is like recognize that this is going to be a lot of work. And 2 is this work is going to get easier. Just like fitness, just like running a mile. The first time you run a mile is probably the hardest mile you'll ever run.
Mhm.
if you stay consistent and thoughtful, and like you just said, give yourself appropriate space and time to rest and take care of yourself.
Mhm.
So
I agree. And I think that like that's also, going into coaching is something that you got to love. I mean, like when you work with both teaching and coaching, if you love it, it doesn't feel like work. And this does not
yeah,
feel like work for me. I
yeah,
watch film, I spend hours on practice plans. I, do my players will probably think I do like a psychotic amount of work, when
yeah.
it comes to this, but I love it. And, and it's all about them and making the best experience for them. And, and all of my girls are, different in like who they are and what they want out of the program too. Like to think about that. So there's, I have a player who's going to be playing Division III basketball at Catholic University next year. And then I have some players who just play because they heard we were fun. So both of those players,
Yeah,
I want to tap into and make sure that they have the best experience. And,
totally.
and that is exciting for me too. And it's a lot of fun, getting to really know these girls. And I've gotten to a lot more because I can see one of my players commenting.
You're getting
Watch
some of
film
the best
24/7.
Instagram live quotes I've ever had.
Yeah, they know I'm psychotic when I do that. But like, no, but at the end of the day, it's really making the best experience for them.
Yeah,
I think that, when I think about my own career, like I had, there were some definitely like downfalls with some coaches I had and some experiences I had, but also at the same time, like there was a lot of positives that came out of it for me. And like I said, I'm the person I am today and the life I have today is because of everything that happened. So like, if I can just give that experience to them, then I feel like, I did my job as a coach, and I just want it to be, something they look back on and think that they had like a ton of fun. And if you watch our game film, you'll know that they have a ton of fun. I will say we have the best bench ever.
I believe you, and that's it. Really, it's funny how often it comes down to that, and like you measure success in two ways. I think it's results and relationships, and it feels like you are building both, and that's meaningful. But it's coaches out there listening to this. When we talk to like Charles Tillman, who you remember Charles Tillman? You're
Yeah.
too young for okay. So like Pro Bowler, probably borderline Hall of Fame. The peanut punch came from him. He went to 2 Super Bowls with 2 different teams, like an elite athlete. And he talks all the time. Not all the time. I don't know him that well, but they talk, he and other high achievers talk about the fun they have. And like these NFL locker rooms, these like big, strong guys that, like at the absolute pinnacle of not only the human performance, but also their athletic careers, a Super Bowl caliber type teams, how much fun they have with each other. And you can
Right.
see it. And it's like, it provides such an important metaphor. It's like you are talking about a high school basketball team that has done things that are super meaningful. And if you're a youth coach, it's the same thing. And if you are an NFL coach, it's the same thing, to different degrees, of course. But there are certain absolutes, and fun is one of them. And I'm just glad you said it, because there's sort of a stigma around that. I think too often in coaching, just like we just said, like it's going to be a lot of work, but also it should be a lot of fun. And now both of those things have to essentially have their own definitions, and you're the one that decides the definition. So like my mom, and I love her desperately. She's one of the most incredible human beings on the planet. I'm convinced of that. She'll call me on Sundays routinely and say, I hope you're not working too hard. And I love her, but like you, it's like, I am doing things, but you'd have to have a different imagination. You'd have to have a different sense of the word work to make what I'm doing right now feel like laborious. Am I doing this for my job? Sure. Like, is there some sort of professional outcome or, sports, whatever? Could this be put into the category of work? Sure. But it doesn't feel tedious. It doesn't feel laborious. It's in fact, I'll share with you some of the best advice I ever got was chase the work you're willing to do. And
I like that quote.
It's so good. And it comes alongside this idea of find your passion. I think finding your passion is actually kind of a troubling comment, a really well-intended comment, but the tricky part about that is passion cannot be upheld. passion sort of it's a chemical cocktail in your brain, maybe some hormones in the body and stuff, but passion is fleeting. By definition, you can't hold a state of passion. So to chase like what you are passionate about is going to lead you down a tough road eventually. You're not going to be passionate every time you show up for a basketball game for the rest of your career. It's just not going to happen. But, you know, and that's true because think about how many other areas of your life that falls into. You know, someone celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary probably is not experiencing the same sort of passion that they thought they would or would have at some point in their life. But it could be so deep with meaning that it's just like important on a level that you and I couldn't recognize right now. But it's because you're chasing the work you're willing to do instead of this fleeting notion of passion. If you chase the work you're willing to do, you'll be routinely surprised by passion and excitement and reward. But it's a little different. And
oh no, I agree. And I think that that's also interesting that you say that, because I think that, you know, as much fun as this is, like, I think the one thing that was different when I came in from my high school experience was the amount of work you put in. At some smaller schools, you know, that might have 3 sport athletes and might have all these different things, the amount of time that they put into one sport looks different. And so, you know, when I came in, I was now like, okay, we're going to do summer stuff. We're going to do summer camp. We're going to do summer leagues. We're going to do off-season stuff. And I realized very quickly that these were things that the girls weren't like used to. But because of the fun and the relationships and all those things, then they were willing to do the work. You know, if the girls know I'm going to, like, you know, jump through a brick wall for them, they're going to do it for me too. It goes like both ways. So if I'm willing to put in all this time and effort to make, you know, this basketball experience really good for them, then they're going to want to show up to these different things. And that's what really makes them a team and build relationships with each other, because they're doing all these things together. And I think those things really go hand in hand, like you said. If they're willing to put in the work and, you know, the culture is there and all that stuff, then the results come. And I think that they saw that it was a lot of fun to do that and be together during the summer and do different things. Now, obviously right now that we're quarantined, we aren't able to do that, but I think that that's what made it enjoyable for them and like made them want to, I guess, put more into it.
Yeah, you're right. And then I think, and now everything is correct. And then we get to this point. Once you have that sort of base level understanding, then you it's not basic, but it is base level, meaning like foundational understanding. Then you can start to get to the nuance of individualization, because like I also definitely have worked with kids who thrive on work. Like they genuinely enjoy it, like the Kobe Bryant, the Mamba mentality. Like I part of the fun for me would be the recognition that I've done a little bit more than whoever my opponent is to get a little bit farther. That now you start talking about that. But another thing that we see in coaching is sometimes people go to those ideas first without recognizing the foundational components of have respect for each other, make it an enjoyable experience, make it fun, be you know, we before me, communal, you know, community first, cheer for your teammates, whatever it might be. And then you start to onboard these other things that get sort of romanticized in movies, like but that's I'm glad to hear you say that. Do you have well, actually you said it already, you do have a range. You have a girl who's going to play in college and you have some who just want to hang out, which is fine. Yeah. Do you think, and I'm going to relate this back not only to you as a coach, but I'm going to go back to Knox College again too. Did you find essentially no two people are motivated by exactly the same thing? How have you worked through that? Like both as a player, recognizing that maybe not everyone was as nitro as you, and then as a coach, recognizing that there's also that range on your team.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. I think that that's definitely something that I learned as a player. I think at the college level it was a little different though, because kind of like we talked about, like if you're willing to play Division III sports or any division and put in all that and put in all that time and effort, like you want the same thing that everyone else does. Now, granted, I was also the psychotic player who was at practice an hour early putting up shots, and maybe not everyone else was. So like, you know, there's definitely different ranges of that. But I feel like, you know, it was a little easier when I was in college because we all, you know, we're wanting that same aspect of, okay, like we're here, we're going to work, we're going to come together. But I think that also at the same time, like motivating everyone at Knox when I was a player was also something that I had to learn, you know, because everyone's motivation level was different. And it wasn't until I think that we really came together and started seeing those results that like it was like a snowball effect. You know, we were like, okay, we want to make a difference, we want to make an impact together, like let's do this, let's, you know, do it together. And then we started to see that. I think as a coach, it definitely has been more of a challenge to figure out, all right, I have this girl who wants this out of the program and this girl wants this out of the program, and how to make it work. But I think at the end of the day, finding that healthy balance of, you know, we're putting in work and we're going to work really hard, and then also the team bonding aspect and the coach, the player bonding aspect, and interweaving that all together. I think that's a big thing, you know, that I definitely have told all my captains is make sure you're doing team bonding. And I would actually force them to send me selfies of them doing team bonding.
Yeah, tell me some of the strategies you've used to make sure that that is happening.
Well, I make them send me pictures, which I really enjoy. But like, I think that that is aspect that a lot of coaches will talk about. Like they'll be like, you know, we have to make sure we have the bonding aspect, but I think it's a very underrated piece, because when I think about my own playing experiences, like you can have a bunch of players with a very high skill, but if they don't play together and trust each other and have that relationship, it doesn't matter at all. And that I can relate to my high school experience, because I feel that when I was in high school, there was a lot of really skilled players that we had, but we could not play as a team. And that trust wasn't there. There was like drama, you know, all that stuff in high school. And we were not good because of it. But then I've also played on some teams where we have like maybe not as much skill, but the fact that we can come together and really trust each other, and we're friends off the court, and even maybe not friends, but we get along really well and have done all these team bonding aspects, I mean, then we're really good. And so I think that was something that was big that I wanted to bring in. And it really does make a difference. And I think that that might be the more important piece. So anyways, going back to what you said, is that I really talk about that with the captains, and I'm like, okay, we're doing team bonding, you know, everyone needs to come. I make sure that the girls know that this is something that's important. I try to come to some, and I try to have them just do it as a team at some.
And what sort of events? Like what will they do?
Some are just like hanging out and like getting pizza after a game.
Literally just being together in the same room. Being
together. And I think, you know, I think that that is what, or even they'll do like sleepovers and stuff. I mean, I think that that's really the biggest piece, is that them like being together and like having so much fun together and getting to know each other and trusting. Oh, that's a big one. Like trusting each other, like that then translates onto the court, you know, and then they're playing together, they're having fun, they're trusting each other. Like all those things are already there. And I really think that that piece is what will drive them to move forward. You know, like I said, I still play with a lot of my friends right now. And it's so interesting, these friends that I've made through basketball all the years, like, and I play with them, and it's like, I know like what they're going to do before they even do it. I know what's going to happen before it even happens. And that's because of like this bond that we've had over the years. And so if they can build that, the team piece, I mean, it's a team sport. If you can come together as a team and play together and know what each other's going to do and really trust each other, at the end of the day, like that's more important, I believe, to win games.
You're right. And there's no disputing that. And it comes back to, this is something that I'll tell our football team now and then, the one football team I work with. It's like, it's sort of a combatant to this idea that you need to sort of have some kind of hatred for your opponent. When it comes down to it, when it's like at the end of the game, when it's like fourth quarter or final period or whatever it might be, overtime, the way that one's willingness to dig into the depths of themselves to get to the next level is pretty much never coming from spite or from hatred of an opponent, from the, you know, that's the kind of stuff that you say in like a pump up speech if you're a total meathead. And not that I'm not, not that I haven't fallen victim to that before, but like, that's not the way it goes. Like you get to the best level, the highest level, the deepest level of yourself, the highest level of your performance, because you care about the people around you. And that is just like, that is proven out like countless times over and over. We try to mimic that in the weight room as often as possible. And a very clear example would be this. Like if Jodi was under the bar doing a max effort hang back squat, if you were in that gym alone, you would do one thing. If you are in that same gym with a coach behind you, just for safety purposes, teammates spotting you, an arc of teammates cheering you on, and everyone's getting after it for you, you are going to do something that you would not have otherwise done. And it's not going to come from hatred of your opponent. It's going to come from like this fuel that you're getting from the team all being together. It proves out like infinitely, like time and time again, this is how things work. This is how teams operate. So the things that you're saying are exactly right. When you have to dig deep and go far at the end of the game, you're doing it, I would assume, for your teammates. That's, you'll get to the next level of yourself for them. And that's really important, I think, for people to hear. I know that. I'll just say, like, this is your story, not mine, but you're making me really important things. Like, I'm thinking like, okay, 4th and 1. I can almost remember it specifically, driving south on my high school football field. We have to pick up a first down. Or in the playoffs, my senior year, going north. I remember it exactly. I remember the drive. We were running power against Glenbrook North in the first round of the playoffs. And it's like, we have to pick this up or the team is not going to succeed. And I'm telling you, in that situation specifically, Mike Duda called the play. I know Ryan Spellman's getting the ball. I've got to pull to that, whatever. Like, you do it, you push for them.
Right.
You like the game, you want to win, all these things. But to get to the next level, it's for us. We break the huddle, and then it's like, let's go. Like, we are going. It's such a powerful – I'm literally getting the chills just thinking back to it. But, like, I put it in that light because even for the most I would say ambitious and to just stereotype meat-headed coaches who are hesitant to do like the team buy-in thing and the fun thing and the bonding thing, recognize that this has real performance implications as well. It's the right thing to do ethically, but it also is going to help your team.
Right.
And that's how it works.
Right. And at the end of the day, kind of like you've been touching on, it's like about this experience for the girls, and it's like they're going to look back. I mean, I personally cannot remember my record from high school. I can't remember, how many games we lost or won. I'm sure we could have done better, but whatever. But like what I remember is, oops.
It's all good. We ran out of time.
Okay.
That's all right.
But I was going to say, it's like, the memories, that's the number one thing is like what I look back on. And that's, through team bonding. And then it has the effects also like with our wins and losses, obviously. So I think it's a really big thing. No, I agree.
Totally. And you're making me reflect. We're going back to high school a lot in this, and I like it. But like, if I had to rank my top 10 memories from high school, I bet 2 or 3 would come on the field. And then the others were like on the bus, coming home from a game or something of that nature. The stories people tell, when we sort of glamorize or think back on our careers, like the stories people tell, like it's so rarely on the field. I don't know if it's the same for you, but I'm never hey, remember that awesome downfield block that Billy made? Like, wasn't that super? Because we got it's like you reminisce about the other things, and
exactly
that's why sports are important, because they're so incredibly human. And that's who we are. We all have just a little bit of competitive nature, just a little, to different ranges. We're all embodied. We all want to bond with our peers and feel validated through that. Like, to play sports is human. And once you recognize that, then you can build something amazing.
Exactly. And I think once I was done with my career at Knox, I was really able to reflect, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't on a team and was like, what is going on with my life? Like, I had no idea like what this felt like before. And I think it really helped me realize that, like, had I not played sports, I would be so different. Like I touched on before, I will tell you that almost literally every single one of my close friends I have met through sport, first off.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
that building of relationships doesn't stop when you're on a team with them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
those are friends that I have throughout my entire life. But then also, like, my work ethic, my ability to have balance in my life, building relationships, just like the type of person that I am was because of sports. And
Yeah.
like, that was the big thing for me. And so I feel like that is something, if I can get the girls even just like a piece of that, then I feel like I've done my job, you know?
Totally. Totally. And now as we sort of reach the back of our time, I'm thinking of like what next steps could be. This is something I probably could have used at the back end of my career, and you've done it well, but what we've started to do is sort of like we're developing like a return to life protocol is what we call it. So we go through the work of identifying what it was that what did we learn through our time as an athlete, and how is that going to transfer into the rest of our lives. It allows you to make peace with some of the things that are no longer going to be there, and hopefully pull the lessons from them and add them. But a lot of people have a lot of trouble with that moment in time. It can be incredibly unsettling. It's sort of a reimagination. It's like a return to adolescence almost, because you have to figure out your identity outside of this thing that was so much part of you, especially when actual adolescence was going on.
Oh yeah, I agree. And it is definitely. But I think that, it helps you when you're in that spot, it helps you reflect on everything, which is also really cool.
Yeah. My dad just sent me a text and said the Instagram live went out. So maybe that's all right. That's okay.
Sorry if I talk too much.
You don't. No, not. Are you kidding me? We go. I mean, we both like to talk.
Yes,
There's nothing wrong with that.
Like I could talk forever about my basketball team. So.
All right. Well, then give us this. I will. We probably don't have. I don't know if we're gonna be able to reconnect on live or not. But
that's right.
If you had sort of three things, three bits of advice, essentials to a Marver coached culture, what would they be? I'm
gonna join this thing really quick. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I can be on that. Okay, so three essential things to a Marver coached culture.
Three essentials to for one of your teams.
Okay. Well, I think like when it comes to culture, okay, so the first one would definitely be like positive energy. I think the girls know that that's like the number one thing is like positivity. And that looks different for everyone, but at the same time, you're good?
I'm good, yeah. I didn't actually fall, just the phone fell.
Yeah. I think that's the number one thing though, is like the positivity and positive energy and just like them believing in each other and in themselves. Because that's something I believe in so much. I mean, like I said, I'm a very like upbeat like person, and I feel like that positivity is the number one thing that I feel like drives. And then the second thing I feel like would just be the putting in the work to it. So I think we talked about how that culture also comes together with putting in the work. And so I think that them knowing that, when we turn it on, we turn it on. And when it's practice time and when we're in the games, when we're working hard, like we're turning it on. And so that would probably be the second thing. And then the third thing also is like the relationship building. Like I just feel like that is huge. And it's across all aspects. I mean, the girls know I care because I truly care and I don't fake it. And then they care for each other because they truly care and they don't fake it. I think that the girls can totally see through if I'm just like asking them how they are because my athletic director texted me to check in on the players. Like that's not why I ask how they are. I ask how they are because I care.
Right.
And I ask how, and like players that played for me last year now in college, I will still ask how they are. Players that have played for me when I coached at Niles North, or when, I also coach another team during the summers, a junior Olympics team. Like these girls know that like I am asking how they are because I care. And like, then I think that trickles down. At the end of the day, if I can show them that I care, they can show each other that they care about each other, and then that translates to everything. So I think the relationship building is huge. And as a player, I could tell when it was faked, like when a coach was was literally just calling me because they feel like they had to, or like when a coach is calling me because they actually, wanted to know
Mm-hmm.
how I was and how I was doing. And so I think that that is the big difference in really what builds a culture. Maybe I'll move number 3 to number 1. Relationship building should be number 1.
I'm okay. I'm moving this. So I've got authentic relationships or relationship building as 1,
Yeah.
positive team culture, and work ethic.
Yeah.
Is that
I would
fair?
say
Are those the
those would
3?
be my 3.
Those are the big 3?
Big 3. Yeah.
Look, if you have those, you're going to win basketball games.
Exactly.
I think, and I know it may not be about that, but you will win basketball games if you can knock out those 3. You'll also create like an incredibly powerful learning experience, and you just might change someone's life. So those are 3 pretty darn good staples, I think. Good anchors to build around.
That's the goal. So
I like it. All right. Well, do you have anything else that you want to say to maybe some of your Willows players or anyone else who might be embarking on their journey as a young coach?
I just will want to reiterate, like, definitely that I hope that everyone like listening knows that like changing a culture is not because of a coach, it's because of a team. And my players are like the most amazing people ever. And that's why I think that they've had the positive experience is because of them. I just helped them tap into it, but they did everything else. And I think that a successful program comes from the players, like being able to do that. And I'm just like super proud of them. I really am. So
it's no surprise why you're getting such stellar reviews on Instagram Live. One of them, by the way, for people who can't see, was Queen Marver. Just like glowing reviews. So, but it makes sense because it feels like what you're saying is incredibly authentic. Relationships, positive culture, work ethic. That's Willows basketball right now.
that is.
So that's exciting.
Can't wait to get back at it with them.
Well, I hope it happens before too long, certainly. And I hope you're able to stay in contact while away. Let's see. Hold on. Ashley loves you also, it sounds like. So I mean, I think it's amazing. Tell all the girls at Willows that I say hello. Once everyone can be sort of back in person, I hope we can maybe continue a string of workshops in some way or other, and we'd certainly be happy to support whatever it is that you're doing because it's meaningful.
Well, thank you for hyping us up because the girls definitely deserve it. So
they're awesome people with an awesome leader. And what was your AD's name again? Was it Paul?
Oh, yes. That's the final thing I want to give a huge shout out is my athletic director, Paul Channon, is the reason why I'm here and has believed in me since day one, which helps me like be the coach that like I possibly can be. So Paul Channon deserves all of the credit in the world for this entire program, not just for basketball, but all the athletics. He is great. So
he seems pretty great. And please tell him I say hello as well. Tell Melville I say hello. And if you see her counterpart, Big Will, please tell him I say hello. Tell everyone I say hello. I'm going to send this to some of our friends at Knox College as well.
Oh, please do.
All right, Jodi, you're awesome. I hope anyone who's listening today keeps an eye out. We're publishing an article that you wrote on Monday on beyondstrength.net. So people can hear a little bit of your wisdom there as well. And then obviously if they want to follow